Say, Vince, let's kick it off.
All right.
Welcome. All right. Welcome to Highlands Live. It is an effort.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is an effort of the Highlands Community Association to better connect our community. This week we welcome Vince Watchorn. Hi, Vince.
Hi, Ben. Hi, Lindsay. Great to be here. I'm really honored to be included.
Thanks, man. Thank you. I'm Benjamin Wagner. As Vince mentioned, I'm a super fresh transplant to the neighborhood and the newly minted communications lead for the Highlands Community Association. And
I'm Lindsay DeSabatino. I lead our events.
Thanks, Linz. Our goal here is super simple, and it's to meet neighbors from the Highlands and surrounding communities in order to discuss local arts, culture, business, parks, recreations, politics. Each 30-minute program will feature a live interview. Here we are, moderated audience Q&A. It'll go a little something like this: quick welcome, we'll intro Vince. Then Linz and I will do about a 15-minute sort of interview or discussion. And then we hope you guys will ask some questions of Vince. He's got a lot of neat topics to talk about. Linz, how will that Q&A go?
So right now, everyone is muted, but we really want to encourage discussion and interaction. So please raise your hand. You can either privately message me that you have a question that you want to ask, or you can put it out in the group chat and I will unmute you and hopefully you'll turn your camera on and ask your question. So time is limited, so just one question and we might not get to everyone.
We'll do our best. Thanks, Linz. And we are recording this live. So when the show's over, we will post it to the Highlands Community Association website at highlandscommunityassociation.org and distribute it to our 1,000-person strong email. So enough of our rambling, our setup. Vince, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here, Ben.
All right, a little bit of context on Vince. He's Wilmington born and raised, a graduate, former trustee, former teacher, and alumni service award recipient of the Tatnall School. Vince is an independent school leader with more than 25 years of experience as head of the Providence Country Day School, plus stints at the Ella School and West Nottingham Academy. Vince is a faculty member of the National Association of Independent Schools. He is an author and an editor, and one of the reasons I was personally super duper interested, Vince is also a local history buff. He is the president of the Friends of the Coochs Bridge Historical Site. His work has been published by Delaware History and Cedar Tree Press. Boom, we're on, Vince. So
Thanks,
Vince, help us. We want to orient you within the sort of space of,
Sure.
of the Highlands. You know, what is your view out your window? What is your day-to-day experience? Like what is your Highlands?
I look out the window of my office and I see other houses, and I see the home of one person who I sort of grew up with and another person who was my high school advisor, lifelong friend, and you know, the whole family's a friend of mine, and they're all just kind of right there. I see a couple locally owned businesses, but truthfully, Ben, more often I am seeing that view from the porch, the wonderful front porch, which gives direct access to all of the Highlands runners, walkers, strollers. It's a wonderful way to just connect.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I'll be looking for you when I wander by. Linz?
All right, so this is the fun part. We're going to do a quick word association. So this is going to be like a 1, 2, 3 exercise.
Okay.
What comes to mind when I say Tatnall?
Oh, home. The color of my blood.
Okay, Brandywine.
A beautiful river.
And Wilmington.
I'm going to go home again. Wilmington is a many splendored treat.
Okay.
Totally. So Lynn set me up there. Both of your parents worked at Tatnall School. You and your siblings attended there, and you eventually taught there. What was your experience there that led you to want to pursue leadership within the independent school system?
It's a really interesting question, Ben, because I think if my teachers from the 15 years I was there were to find out that I was in education today and leading a school, they might faint or vomit or be otherwise surprised, because I was really just a lousy student, but I adored the experience that I was having, and particularly the experience outside the classroom. But then once I got to a place in the upper school where a lot of the classes were very much geared towards my specific interests, that's when I really started to come alive as a student. But the whole thing, I feel like Tatnall was special for me because the experiences that were happening outside the classroom were treated as equally important as those that were happening inside the classroom. And I feel like that's where I got my most substantive education in a lot of ways. Um, the school was absolutely on fire when I was there. It was Tatnall in the 80s was just a great place for a variety of reasons, and a lot of it was classroom.
Mm.
Um, but I felt like if I could help be a part of providing that sort of education to future generations, I mean, I'm drawn to people. I like working with kids. I wouldn't have used this language at the time, but I really love fostering potential in others.
Yeah.
Um, those things all added up, and if I could help future generations have the kind of experience I had, I wanted to be a part of it. And
Mm.
so of course the privilege of familiarity. I mean, I graduated from college and they offered me a job, and I had a chance to be there, in my environment and working frankly with a lot of the teachers who had brought me up. And it just sort of rolled from there. I fell in love not just with Tatnall at that point, but then with education, independent education in general.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, I promise we won't go too super deep on this, but in the few times we've spoken prior, I think one of the things we connect on is this idea of like empathy, right? And like other inclusion, connection. I'm interested in, just from a high level, a lot of kids have been disrupted by this pandemic. I'm interested with your memory as a student, but moreover with your experience as a leader in schools. What are students experiencing? What's your sense of what they're managing?
I think it's well, so often we want to find a single story to explain everything, and I think it's different for a lot of different kids. When we look at, I think what we're talking about is not just the hybridity of the educational experience now, but that idea of being separated from your friends,
Right.
separated from your learning environment. I mean, let's focus on it more as a remote question than a hybrid question, if that's okay. I think it's all over the place. I mean, I think the typical story is that kids are in a difficult place because they don't get to see their kids as much, they don't get to see their friends as much, the experience is not as organic, they don't have as much direct classroom time. um, but they're evolving. They have the kids who are in this pandemic moment now have a tremendous ability to adapt, and
Mhm.
so they're adapting. um, we are seeing a lot more trouble with anxiety,
Mm.
people who are feeling that their mental health is being challenged. A lot of just what we experience when we have loss of the human interaction. That is what school is so much about. I mean, I was talking about my experience being a lot of what happened outside the classroom, and my goodness, I mean, it just doesn't happen now.
Mm.
But there's also other kids, and I think a lot of times it's kids who don't learn in traditional ways, who are thriving in a way in school that they never have before, because the tools are different and they connect with their cognitive system in a way that is more apropos for them. So I think it's all over the place, but we really are seeing a breadth. And what I'm curious about is what we're going to keep. I mean, people keep talking about going back to normal, and I just think we'll go back to maybe largely normal,
Yeah.
but there are going to be a lot of things in this experience, not just educationally and everything, a lot of things from this experience that we say, okay, well, yeah, we were going to go there in 10 years anyway. We did it in one. And so we're okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll catalyze some activity, sort of propel. Speaking of,
Exactly.
you've got a career where you've really come to focus on strategic diversity,
Hmm.
including a recent stint as a guest teacher in Ghana, right? Just prior to the pandemic. How did the focus evolve for you? How's it managed?
I think evolve is the right word. I mean, if we go back to that Tatnall experience, I mentioned the school being in a really strong. Uh, I think I said it was on fire when I was there. One of the things that, and by the way, it wasn't a perfect place. No place is perfect. It was firing on all cylinders at that time. But one of the things that strikes me about it in retrospect is that. Uh, and by the way, this line goes right through the Highlands. But in retrospect, we were doing a lot of things then that were way, way ahead of the norm. whether it was the very student-centered scheduling style, or in the case of this question, a lot of other cultures being taught. I mean, the one of the teachers I was closest to actually had an entire curriculum based on African American studies, and that was really enlightening for me to understand those different cultures and to think of them as part of my own, not my own experience, but part of my own world view, to incorporate those things. In another English class taught by another Highlands resident, we were reading Richard Wright and Langston Hughes and Maya Angelou. Some schools struggle still to get those folks on the reading list. So it was a place to be where we were really expanding mindset, I think, about race. And I don't remember ever talking about race and racism at Tatnall, but I think we were certainly in a multicultural place at that point, which had a big impact. And then another Highlands resident who had a big impact was the person who led our peer counseling program. And one of the things I notice in a lot of my work around strategic diversity today is that the listening skills, the tips and strategies for avoiding arguments and getting into conversations, and said, so much of it is what I was taught way back then. So there's a direct line in terms of that. But as my career went on, I think, talk to somebody who worked with me to see if this is true. I think that there were sort of three accents in everything that I tried to approach. And if you look at most of my work, you'll almost always find the arts, the environment, particularly forests, and diversity. And for whatever reason, as I've gotten older, the diversity piece, the inclusion piece in particular, has been the one that I've really been drawn to, because I think it's the one where we have the greatest need, and where we as a culture, we just can't seem to get out of our own way to address a lot of the systemic problems that we've developed over centuries. And so those are the things that I think are most important to me, is having empathy for people who have been marginalized, and trying to find ways that we can be more inclusive as a white society, and engage different experiences in different ways.
Well, let's get to a couple of those. Let's get a little tactical, right? So last summer, to my previous point, there was a real moment, right? It felt like a real spark of progress for racial justice.
Yeah.
And at the same time, things like the election insurrection suggested some other systemic forces again, right? And by all accounts, COVID seems to have really pushed a greater disparity between those who do not have means. So what sort of real practical things can we do to advance racial justice in our own neighborhood, right? In the Highlands, in Wilmington, around us, day to day?
Yeah. And when I think of the three teachers that I mentioned earlier, Peter Dalio, Sarah Balin, Sandy Eidstein, all still live in the Highlands, by the way. I think that to me informs the lesson. One of the it's not an easy answer, because I think we want it to be an easy answer, but it's not. I think grounding ourselves in thinking about race and racism, understanding that the intent of what we do or say or experience is often something that has a different impact on others, and just recognizing that we exist in relation to others in a way that might be different, probably is different than what we've been taught. How often do we have opportunities to validate experiences of people of color, or to think differently? I think one of the things we can do at a practical level is just understand our biases. Where do they come from? How did the Highlands become the place it is? Why do we have the privileges that we have in the Highlands? I don't think race in America is easy, and a lot of what we've been taught just isn't true. So I think that learning piece that I was talking about with my teachers, just the learning about, in this case, not just African American experiences, although very important, but about race and racism themselves. I think of Eddie Moore's 21-day racial justice challenge, or The Merit Project, writing by Beverly Daniel Tatum, Ibram Kendi, Patricia Williams. I mean, there's lots and lots of things to just learn and ground ourselves and think about race and racism in a different way. And then you asked for three. Two, I would say, once you've thought about it, I believe that people will see that racism exists as a systemic cycle in our country. It's not just there because it just started. It's been there. It's been there for a reason, and it perpetuates and goes on and on and on. If we look at it backwards, we might see a situation, if we see it charged with something racial, well, why? And where did those relationships come from? And what system is that based in? And back to back to back to back to back, you're probably back hundreds of years. So seeing that system of racism, I think, is critically important to what I think the real answer to the question is, and that's interrupting the cycle.
Mm.
If we can see the cycle of racism, we can see the system of racism, we can work to intercept it. We can work to interrupt it. Breaking stereotypes, calling out a racist joke rather than quietly allowing it. Do we see something that has racist innuendo to it? Say so. Thinking about where we spend money. There are minority-owned businesses around that we can focus on. It's sometimes hard in Wilmington. I just moved back myself a year and a half ago, and was trying to find, particularly in my medical complex that I put together, it is hard to find African American doctors in Wilmington. It's really hard, and so that there's a system behind that, which hopefully we're trying to resolve with education. But making decisions that include understanding the economics around how we spend our money, where we spend our money, and even if we're not using a minority-owned business or a minority-owned vendor or provider, talking about it and asking, how does your business plan to expand opportunity, or to think about race in your own messaging. We see little things. If we think about it and recognize the cycle, we'll see little things, and we can call them out.
Yeah. And progress is multiple degrees in aggregate, right? So
yeah.
And we've talked, Vince, about your interest in the past having a relevance, not just to the present, but to how you think about the future. So let's pivot a little bit to, as you characterize it, I think, your non-expert interest in local history, right?
Oh, I'm not an expert. No, I mean, it's like chef or doctor or something else. Historian has a capital H, and there's a degree and everything. I have an undergraduate degree in history. I am not a professional.
Well, so what drives your interest in the Coochs? Can you tell us about this site, the Coochs Bridge site, and why it really stokes your fires?
Stokes my fires because it's about the future as much as it's about history, and I always love that connection. And it's about so much more than what Delawareans tend to think of. If Delawareans have heard of Coochs Bridge, it's pretty much always because there was a battle there during the Revolutionary War, which many would characterize as a skirmish, and that's about it. 3 days in the whole history. What we know is that it was much more than a skirmish. Skirmishes don't have 20 plus people deceased. And once you go in, you might come onto the property because of the battle. But there's so much more. There's some architectural history. There is relevant history that goes back to Paleo-Indian archaeology. It's an area where the Lenape roamed thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, before they were driven away by European settlement. And even then, after the Cooch family buys it, there are people who are, well, before and after, we think, but there are people who are enslaved there. So there's an opportunity to study that history. It becomes, 9 generations of Cooch family, a very prominent family in Delaware, community servants, almost every generation, industrialists, those who aren't. And so there's milling history, tremendous industrial history, where the infrastructural footprint is still there. You can go and see all these different races and water forces still in place to drive these different mills. Environmental I mean, there's a huge stand of old growth forest.
Mhm.
I mean, you can't believe you're within 100 yards of I-95 for some of this stuff.
Yeah.
So to me, the opportunity to tell a full and complete story, where a full and complete story has not been told before, to engage broader access, is really compelling. And I'm going to have to say, I mean, the opportunity to explore African American history in an area that we haven't, where we have not had the chance to do that as part of that area of Delaware's history, is really important. And I also see an opportunity for engaging community as sort of passive recreation. If you look at a map, you see where the Coochs Bridge property is, and there's parks nearby. I think if we play it right, we might be able to develop some kind of a woodland trail system that would improve life for maybe all Delawareans, but certainly the ones around Newark and Glasgow and Bear.
Mhm.
So multifaceted. I was lucky enough in an earlier iteration of my life to know the Cooch family a little bit, and so when I had the opportunity to get involved, I knew a little bit about the property, but not enough. It's been really exciting. Our friends group is brand new, not even a year old yet, and I think we have a bright future with that site. The state has purchased 10 acres of it as part of the Division of Historical and Cultural Affairs.
Oh, awesome. I was going to ask, how can folks get more involved, not just there, but in understanding and protecting? And this is one of the things, as we've talked about, that I just find so exciting about where we live, is it just feels like there's history around every corner.
Every corner.
Every
corner. Yeah, if you're asking specifically about Coochs Bridge, I'd be happy to share my email. Anybody can get in touch. If it's generally around the Highlands, I think the best general advice for anybody who's interested in local history is just to look up. We tend to walk, we look ahead, we look at the sidewalk, but if we can look up at the architecture or some of the old signage, we see so much about layering or vernacular architecture or building styles and way that people built things. And read the memorial plaques that are around.
Yeah.
I mean, let alone, we have the Delaware Historical Society here. Our city councilman, Nathan Field, founded the Wilmington History Society that does evening talks every now and again. We could definitely use people's help at the Brown Mansion over in Browntown, which is under threat of wrecking ball right now. But there's a community of us trying to find a new life for it. And see what service it could provide to the community. But I think to look up and read the plaques, and you'll start to, your mindset will start to shift, and you don't just see right now, but you see how we got here. And of course, I've said it, I think I've said it earlier in this call, the more we understand how we got here, the better we can plot where we're going, make a better future.
Nice, right on. So I got to wrap. I could do this, Vince. I could keep peppering you, but we want to give folks a chance to ask a couple questions. And Lindsay has our speed round for you. So I just got a quickie before. So folks, if you got your questions, raise your hand for Linz. Vince, you were gone out of Wilmington for something like 15, 20 years, right?
Around that.
Roughly. And and you're back recently. What surprised you on your return?
I'm going to say two things. Number one, how quickly everything just sort of fell back in place. I mean, I knew that I would have some advantages because I knew people and so forth, but how quickly I've been able to reconnect with this community. I never really totally abandoned it. I was still involved with it the whole time I was away, but still, it's like gas to a flame for me, and it's been wonderful. And the other, I would have to say, I mean, maybe the most exciting thing happening in all of Wilmington right now is the Reach Riverside redevelopment program downtown. I mean, just an astonishing sort of cradle to college education program, holistic community revitalization effort that's built on community voice. I didn't even know it was happening here. It is unbelievably important.
Awesome. Linz, take it away, sister.
All right, now I'm going to put you in the hot seat. We're going to ask you all of your local favorites. So what's your favorite dish and restaurant?
But I don't see any reason to leave the triangle of deliciousness, Angelo's Southeast Kitchen in Scalessa. The summer roll at Southeast Kitchen, the French toast at Angelo's.
Mm.
I have to agree. Those are some of my favorites. Okay, coffee.
I don't consume coffee.
Wow,
Oh,
that
look at
explains
you.
it.
I bet you sleep much better at nighttime.
I so love it.
What's your favorite view?
Oh, Rockford Park.
Mhm.
I like to sit at the upper baseball field and stare at the tower.
Mhm.
When I need to ground myself a little bit. And there are a couple places down right on the banks of the Brandywine where I can sit and just be for a while.
Yeah.
Beach.
Rehoboth, if I must.
All right. Historical figure.
Lewis Redding.
Oh, you got to give us a little more, or me anyway.
Lewis Redding, you're the Delawarean historical figure, right?
Yeah.
Lewis Redding was the first African-American attorney in the state, and it was some of his cases that were tied together with others that became Brown versus the Board of Education.
Awesome. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, Delaware had 2 different cases that were part of Brown versus the Board.
All right, local attraction.
Besides Cooch's Bridge.
Yeah, right.
I really enjoyed the DCCA, which I think is now called the Delaware Contemporary. Was on the board there for a while, and really excited about that place. Honestly, I have barely been out of the house in the last year to say what the attractions are, but I think I'm gonna say DCCA for that.
Fantastic. And well, this might be pre-COVID, but weekend escape.
Philadelphia or the Pocono Mountains.
All right. Are you a skier?
I am not, but I like walking through the woods.
The forest, yeah. I'm glad I got a hiking buddy. Nice, Linz. Nice, Vince. So I think we've gobbled up some time, but if folks out there want to type a question in or raise your hand for Linz and I'm sure Vince would be happy to answer your question about independent schools, about Coochs Bridge, local history, his favorite dish in Ghana. We'll give you a few seconds here. Meantime, Vince, the best way for folks to connect with you, I assume, is via your website, which conveniently, like Rogers, Eights and Walnut, is your address. Your name, excuse me. Your name is your address, right?
That's right, yeah.
Guy with the beard.
Yeah,
remember the diamond in his beard?
Vince.
You remember that ad?
The guy with a diamond in his beard.
Yeah.
And I remembered the jingle too, but I'm not going to sing it, Ben. Vince at vincewatchorn.com.
Cool. And the friend.
1 H in Watchorn.
Right on. And the Friends of Coochs Bridge Historical Site is on Facebook, correct?
Yes, there's a Facebook. The historical site is ours. There's also a battlefield. Ours is broader. Friends of Coochs Bridge Historic Site.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, we have done a very thorough job quizzing Vince, but want to give at 7:59 one last chance for anybody who has a question. I think I saw some former mentors out there. Maybe you want to do a little memory lane with them. If not, I'll take a second while y'all are thinking to talk about our next episode, which is Tuesday, April 6th, so 2 weeks from tonight, same time, with serial innovator and big kahuna turned cannabis entrepreneur David Tuttleman, who will share his latest adventures. We also have Alana Delaney from Delaware Parks and State Senator Sarah McBride in the coming weeks, all of which you can find at highlandscommunityassociation.org. And we have a YouTube channel, Lindsay. Did you know that?
No, I didn't, but that's pretty awesome.
We do. The short link is bit.ly/HCA Live, but since only Vince and I are down with short links, you can find it through highlandscommunityassociation.org. Vince, we have so thoroughly edified this audience that I think we can wrap without questions, right, Linz? Or do you see one?
Wait.
Oh,
We have a
oh, great.
Nathan Field and Jared Phillips has a question.
Jared, hey.
Good, great.
So I will take Nathan off unmute, but I'll read his question. Vince, speaking of your focus on history, you wrote a really interesting book on a local restaurant here in Wilmington. How did you come up with such a cool, interesting idea?
This was a book, Nathan, thank you. Nathan is referring to A Meal in One, which was a book about the history of sub shops in Wilmington early history, I should say, only up until about 1960. I used to work in a sub shop. I worked at, and still love, Yahtzee's over on Union Street, and the grandfather of the current proprietors was the first man to open a sub shop in Wilmington, 1935, and that was my beginning, the beginning of my interest in that particular narrative.
All right, that's awesome. Jared, I tried to unmute you. Are you able to unmute yourself?
Yeah, I think I'm good. And my question isn't about that second edition of the Sub Shop series, though. I think we're all eagerly, waiting for that one, Vince.
Keep it nice, Jared.
If you need someone to help you with it, I'm always here.
For research.
Exactly. No, my question is about education, and you and I have known each other for a long time, and I went to Tatnall, and you went to Tatnall, and we're both affectionate about Tatnall, and the private schools in this area I think are all wonderful. But now here I am raising kids in this little corner of the world, and I find myself kind of wondering how I can get more involved with our public schools. As someone who went, K through 8 in public school and then finished in private school, I really know how important it is for our communities to get involved in our public schools. And we have a great little school here in Highlands, and I wonder what you think about how we can help them.
I think it's a great question, and please, I don't want to give the impression that independent schools are the only ones that exist or should exist. I think there are always ways to help public schools. Most of the parents associations are pretty much always looking for people who are willing to pitch in and build the partnership between home and school, which we know helps build a better education for kids. And the schools, I think, usually have the best sense of how they're looking to do that. But volunteer opportunities at the school that your kids go to is always important. And then some people choose to get involved in other ways, like running for school board positions or advocating for educational objectives, through all the channels that we have with our council and boards of education and so forth. I think it's a great question, Jared, and I'm glad that you found your way to that commitment. Very important.
Thanks, buddy. It's good seeing you.
Nice to see you too.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get together soon.
I look forward to it.
All right, take care.
Thanks, Jared. And thanks to everybody for joining us tonight. Thanks so much, Vince.
Thank you.
Really, what a treat. What a great excuse to get to interview you, and really looking forward to spending some more time. Thanks, Linz. Once again, if you want to connect with Vince, visit vincewatchorn1h.com or visit Friends of Coochs Bridge Historic Site on Facebook. And a reminder, on Wednesday, May 19th, the Highlands Community Association will be convening its spring meeting. We do them twice a year, spring and fall. This one will be virtual. More information as the date approaches, and we hope to see you there. Meanwhile, I'm Benjamin Wagner. Thanks.
I'm Lindsay. Peace out.
We'll see you around the neighborhood.